Somewhere in this country, far from the noise of highways and city lights, there are places where people kneel down and cry without feeling embarrassed. Places where a mother prays for her sick child, where a grieving husband lights a candle, where a stranger walks in feeling broken and walks out feeling just a little lighter. These places are not famous the way big cities or tourist spots are famous, but for millions of people, they matter more than any skyscraper ever could. Today, we are going to visit 10 of the most sacred Catholic shrines in America. One of them holds the body of a bishop who people started praying to even before the church made it official. Another was built on a mountain that had no water until one determined woman changed that. One remembers a fire that destroyed everything around it except the one small piece of land where people were praying. And the very last shrine on this list is the only place in the entire country where the Catholic Church has officially confirmed that Mary herself appeared. Stay with me, because these stories are full of pain, hope, courage, and something that feels a lot like real magic. Let's start with number 10. Number 10 takes us to a quiet town called Massillon in Ohio, home to the National Shrine of St. Dymphna. This shrine does not have towering ceilings or huge crowds. What it has is something far more personal, a relic connected to a young woman who lived hundreds of years ago and became known as a source of comfort for people struggling with their mental health. According to old church tradition, Dymphna was a young woman from Ireland who fled her home after tragedy struck her family. She eventually lost her life while trying to protect her faith and her safety. Over time, people going through anxiety, depression, fear, and emotional pain began turning to her in prayer. That is exactly why this shrine feels so different from the others. People do not come here for something to look at. They come carrying invisible pain, things nobody else can see just by looking at them. The shrine does not promise instant healing, and it does not replace doctors or therapy. What it offers is something quieter, a safe place to bring your pain to God and ask for help. And sometimes, that quiet comfort means everything. Number 9 brings us to the calm countryside of Huntsville, Alabama, home to the Shrine of the Most Blessed Sacrament. Most people know the name behind this shrine, a nun named Mother Angelica, who became famous for bringing Catholic teaching into homes through television. But strangely enough, the shrine she helped create has almost nothing to do with cameras or media. It is built for silence. Walking inside feels like stepping into another world completely. Marble floors, detailed wood carving, and golden decorations pull your eyes upward, but none of it is meant to be the main attraction. Every single detail in that building points toward one thing, the Eucharist. For Catholics, this is not just a symbol. It's considered the real presence of Jesus. Pilgrims travel from all over the country not to visit a museum dedicated to a famous television nun, but to simply sit quietly, away from noise and distraction, and spend time in prayer. It's almost poetic if you think about it. A woman who spent her life using modern technology to reach millions of people also built a placement to pull people away from all of that noise completely. Number 8 takes us west, high into the mountains near Golden, Colorado, home to the Mother Cabrini Shrine. In the early 1900s, a woman named Frances Cabrini looked at this rocky, dry mountain and saw something most people would have missed, a peaceful summer retreat for young girls from struggling immigrant families. There was just one huge problem. There was no water anywhere on the land. For a place meant to house children, that wasn't a small issue. It threatened to end the entire project before it even started. But Cabrini refused to give up. According to the story passed down at the shrine, she pointed to a rocky spot on the hillside and told the sisters to dig right there. Somehow, water was found. That spring still exists today and remains closely tied to her memory. Cabrini would later become the very first United States citizen to be officially recognized as a saint by the Catholic Church. Today, visitors who want to reach the large statue overlooking the mountain must climb over 300 steps to get there. It's not an easy walk, and that's exactly the point. The difficulty of the climb reflects the difficulty she overcame to build something out of nearly nothing. Number 7 brings us into the heart of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, to the National Shrine of St. John Neumann. From the outside, the church looks like countless others built by immigrant communities across the city. But downstairs, inside the lower level, something incredibly moving waits behind glass. The remains of a bishop who spent his entire life serving others. Neumann was born far away in Bohemia and came to America as a young priest with almost nothing. He spent years traveling constantly, helping struggling Catholic communities that had little access to church services. He eventually became a bishop, but he never acted like someone chasing status or power. He built schools, strengthened religious education, and dedicated himself to helping ordinary people deepen their faith. He passed away suddenly on a Philadelphia street at just 48 years old. What happened next says everything about the man he was. Almost immediately, everyday Catholics began visiting his tomb to pray, decades before the church officially declared him a saint. People didn't need permission to recognize holiness when they saw it. They simply knew. Number 6 takes us to Emmitsburg, Maryland, home to the National Shrine of St. Elizabeth Ann Seton. Her story often starts with an impressive title, the first person born in America to become an officially recognized Catholic saint. But the real story begins somewhere much darker, at a moment when her entire life seemed to be falling apart. At only 29 years old, Elizabeth lost her husband to illness while living overseas. She returned home to America as a widow, raising 5 children with very little financial security. When she later converted to Catholicism, she lost even more, facing rejection from parts of the social world she had once belonged to. Instead of breaking her, that pain became the foundation for something extraordinary. In Emmitsburg, she founded a religious community dedicated to teaching and caring for children who had few opportunities in life. Visitors today can still see the simple stone house where she once lived with almost nothing, a powerful reminder that some of the most meaningful missions in history begin with heartbreak, not comfort. Number 5 brings us to Fonda, New York, home to the National Shrine of St. Kateri Tekakwitha. This shrine holds something unusual, the actual remains of a Mohawk village where Kateri once lived as a young girl. Walking through these grounds means walking through 2 histories at the same time, her Catholic faith and her Native American heritage. Kateri lost her parents and brother to disease when she was only 4 years old, an illness that also left her with permanent vision problems and scars. She was later baptized using water from a spring that still exists on the property today. Her decision to embrace Catholicism brought real tension within her community, and her story remains complicated, honored, and still discussed today. She passed away when she was barely in her 20s, and was eventually recognized as a saint many years later. What makes this shrine so powerful is that it doesn't erase one part of her story to highlight the other. Both her Catholic faith and her native identity are honored side by side, exactly as she lived them. Number 4 takes us to Auriesville, New York, home to the National Shrine of Our Lady of Martyrs. This land carries a heavier, more painful memory than most shrines on this list. In the 1640s, 3 missionaries lost their lives here during a time of conflict, fear, and enormous cultural tension. Their names were René Goupil, Isaac Jogues, and Jean de Lalande. One was killed after being captured. Another survived captivity, escaped, and then made the almost unthinkable decision to return to the very place that had already caused him so much suffering. He and his companion were later killed there as well. All 3 were eventually recognized by the church among a larger group of missionary martyrs. Today, pilgrims walk quietly through the same land where all of this happened, visiting memorials and a large circular building built specifically for prayer and reflection. This shrine does not ask visitors to view history as simple or easy. It asks something harder, to sit with the reality of what people are sometimes willing to sacrifice because of their faith. Number 3 brings us to Stockbridge, Massachusetts, home to the National Shrine of the Divine Mercy. This story does not begin in America at all. It begins in Poland, with a nun named Faustina Kowalska, whose writings focused on trust in God's mercy. During the chaos of the Second World War, a priest carried her message out of Europe and eventually brought it to a quiet hill in Massachusetts. As the message spread, more people became drawn to it, but the journey wasn't smooth. At one point, due to translation problems, church officials in Rome actually placed restrictions on how the devotion could be promoted. Instead of giving up, the community continued teaching within those limits until the confusion was eventually cleared up years later. Once that happened, everything changed. The nun behind the message was recognized as a saint. Her feast day became recognized worldwide, and this quiet hill in New England became one of the most visited Catholic destinations in the entire country, all built around one simple and powerful idea. No matter how heavy life feels, mercy is always greater. Number 2 takes us to the nation's capital, Washington, home to the massive Basilica of the National Shrine of the Immaculate Conception. This shrine's story starts differently from the others, not with one person suffering, but with a decision made by church leaders long before the building even existed. In the 1800s, American bishops requested that the entire country be placed under the spiritual protection of Mary. That request was approved, but construction of an actual shrine worthy of that honor didn't begin for decades. When it finally started, the project moved slowly through financial struggles, wars, and generations of changing leadership. What makes this basilica so unique today is what's found inside. Dozens of chapels honoring different cultural expressions of Catholic faith, brought by immigrant communities from all over the world. Walking through the building feels like walking through the story of Catholic America itself. Many different backgrounds, all gathered under one shared faith. And finally, number one, the National Shrine of Our Lady of Champion in Wisconsin. This shrine holds a distinction unlike anything else on this list. In 1859, a young Belgian immigrant named Adele Breeze reported seeing a woman dressed in white appear to her in this quiet countryside. During her final vision, the woman gave her a clear and simple mission: to teach children in the area about their faith and prepare them for important religious moments in their lives. Adele spent the rest of her life doing exactly that. More than a decade later, a massive and deadly fire tore through the region, destroying almost everything in its path. As flames approached, Adele and local families gathered together, prayed through the night, and carried a statue in procession around the property. When morning came, the surrounding land had been devastated, but the shrine grounds remained untouched. That story became part of local memory for generations, even though the church did not officially investigate the visions until many years later. After a careful and lengthy review, church officials finally declared the apparition worthy of belief. To this day, it remains the only Marian apparition in the United States to receive that official recognition, making this small piece of Wisconsin farmland one of the most spiritually significant places in the entire country. And that brings us to the end of our journey through 10 of America's most sacred Catholic shrines. Some of these places were built around relics. Some were built around miracles. Others grew out of heartbreak, sacrifice, or simple determination. But every single one of them shares something in common. They were shaped by people who refused to give up on their faith, even when life gave them every reason to. That's really what pilgrimage is all about. It's not just about visiting a beautiful building. It's about stepping away from your normal life for a moment, walking into a place shaped by real struggle and real devotion, and allowing yourself to feel something deeper than what everyday life usually offers. If these stories moved you even a little, do me a favor. Hit the like button, leave a comment sharing which shrine touched you the most, and subscribe so you don't miss the next journey into the hidden and sacred corners of Catholic history. Thank you so much for spending this time with me, and I hope peace stays with you and your family.